Welcome to Just Say This, the place to get all the help you need for the birds and bees talks. I'm your host, Amy Lang. Just a quick reminder, this show is for grown-ups because I'll be swearing. There'll be lots of swears, and then I'll also be talking about grown-up sex. I can guarantee that your kids do not want to listen to this, and they really don't want to listen to it with you. You've been warned. Do you have a question for me? Please give me a call. The phone number is 206-926-1522, 206-926-1522, and I will answer on the show. And if you have a funny sex talk story, please call in those as well, 206-926-1522. Thanks. Hiya, I was just sitting here thinking, I got nothing to intro/rant about, and then I remembered that I do. So I have the menopause, like I bet you might, depending on how old you are and your bod and all that. And I was just thinking about, it's like reverse puberty, right? There's all kinds of weird shit that goes on, especially in perimenopause. I think I talked about my catamenial epilepsy where I developed these, I think they're called focal seizures or auras around my period time. Anyway, check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes. Anyway, so it's this weird thing. It took forever to get diagnosed because why? I have ovaries. I'm a gal. Of course it took forever to get diagnosed. Anyway, so weird shit starts going on with your body, including weight gain, right? Very, very common. And then your skin gets weird and all kinds of stuff. And it feels like everything just slides down. So I must have clicked on something on Instagram, probably about weight loss. And I know I am not a big person, but I am socialized to think that I'm not the right size. And I don't know what I did, but I clicked on something and I swear to fucking God, every third ad is an ad about eliminate this one food and lose your menopausal weight gain. Eat this, do that, and the little diagram with that flap and all this stuff. So anyway, all this to say, make sure your kids know about menopause and that it is a natural process of the female body, that it can be really weird. Unfortunately, it happens the same time as kids are going through puberty, so it can be quite troublesome, especially since people are having babies later in life. Make sure they know about it. It's not always part of sexuality education, or it's just glossed over. And I know for lots of you, your parents, your moms never even mentioned that it was going on. My mom didn't. I had no idea. I was also out of the house, we weren't that close. But anyway, so talk about menopause. It is kind of hard to put a positive spin on a thing that makes all those things happen. But I think it's important for everybody to know that this is a natural process of the human body, that sure, it can be problematic in a lot of different ways, but I think the more people know about it, the better. Like, for example, my really good friend who is very fit and active, she suddenly turned up pre-diabetic. The last person on the planet that should be pre-diabetic. Super weird, out of the blue. She changed her diet. It went away. She's back to normal. No meds or anything. But at some point in there, I just thought, is this a menopause thing? Guess what? It is. It is. And so it would have been great if her, doctor had known that, but of course they didn't know that. So menopause, it's a thing. Instagram ads, they are things. I don't know how to make them go away. I got to start clicking on other stuff, but they all make me fucking crazy anyway. So that's what I have to say. Talk to your kids about menopause. I'm sure I've talked about this before, but I'm just talking about it again because stupid Instagram telling me I should be ashamed of my body. Well, I'm growner than that. I'm not ashamed of my body. And, I'll keep saying that until I firmly believe it. Alrighty. We're having another mailbag show because that is the way things are going these days. Again, if you want a free quickie, they're fun. It's 30 minutes. Anything goes in the conversational department. Call and leave a voicemail. Whatever you want to talk about at the quickie, make that your question for me for the podcast. 206-926-1522. Leave me your name and your email address and we can make a date. So there you go. All right, let's see what's happening in the mailbag this week. Okay, I gotta say, this one just cracked me up and killed me and a variety of things. So this is from an auntie, and she says, "Hi, Amy. While talking to her 14-year-old son about how he's spending his money on Amazon, my sister went through his purchases and found out that he'd ordered a sex toy, silicone mouth and lube, and that it was delivered while her and her husband were away at work. In the moment, she calmly said she was canceling his Prime membership so he can't order anything else. However, she doesn't know what to do with the toy. Does she take it away? Does she keep it? How can she approach this?" Okay, so I'm going to answer the question that's the sex part, and then I'm going to be judgy about the other part. Now, if you're wondering what part of this I could possibly be judgy about, you just wait one hot minute. All right, so first of all, that thing she's talking about is called a masturbation sleeve. And so it is something that people with penises use to jerk off. You can put some lube in there. It feels really good. It adds a dynamic to the wanking situation. So that's what that is. I'm, fine with him keeping it. He has it. It's probably safer than having, regular sex with someone. Of course, the concern is if he is, using the porn, which he probably is based on what's coming up in my judgy moment. I think it's good. Now, would I give my kid one of those? I might not. I don't know. I'm not really thrilled with people giving young clitoris havers vibrators because it's so stimulating. It can make it harder to have regular partnered sex. But the sleeve thing, I imagine that it's not the same because it's just slick in there. Anyway, so you can decide if you want to do that for your kids. It's up to you. If you're looking for a place to get really great sex toys and that is feminist and started in Seattle, there's a link to Babeland in the show notes. So there you go. That sleeve thing, good enough, fine, whatever. But here's the judgy part. What the fuck is a 14-year-old doing with their own Prime account? Now, yes, super judgy. I cannot imagine giving my kid their own Prime account because all kinds of things can get purchased. There's all kinds of shit you can get on Amazon. And so, yay, he bought a masturbation sleeve. What else is he buying? What kind of porn is he getting into there? Because there's books of porn, right? Which I get is better than watching the video. Anyway, that's my judgy part here. So if your child has a Prime account, why? They don't need it. They don't need that kind of access. Now, if you want them to learn how to be a grown-up, then that you could do in other ways, like they can have their own bank account. Or like most people do, they can hop on your account on Prime, put whatever it is in the cart, and then you okay it. That way, even if they try to buy something, you're always going to see it. Now, of course, they can open their own Prime account, but what 14-year-old has the capacity to do that? Anyway, so that's my judgy business. And if your child has a Prime account, what is that? I think it's bananas. Okay, so anyway, masturbation sleeve, go for it. Not dildos, vibrators for people with clitorises, kind of out. And no Prime accounts for your children. What is that? So get a load of this one. And this is a rough one because, well, it's rough. There's so much stuff tied up in it. I'm answering the question before I answer the question. This person wrote into me and said, "How do I explain to my 8-year-old that her 17-year-old stepsister is pregnant?" Ouch. Nobody wants a 17-year-old pregnant. I mean, nobody. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that. Judgment, shame, fear. I'm talking about the adults, not about the child. The child's experiencing all of that, but so are the adults and the parents. And so explaining to the 8-year-old that her sister's pregnant, that's actually not too tough. What's tough is managing yourself in that conversation because you don't want to shame her sister, but you also, it's hard. Like, it is hard to be enthusiastic about a 17-year-old who got pregnant. Now, we don't have a lot of details, right? Like, we don't know if she was using birth control. We don't know if she was sexually assaulted. We don't know any of that. We don't know if it was consensual. We know nothing. And so we can probably assume that regardless, she didn't intend to get pregnant. I think it's probably a fairly safe assumption that she probably was not using birth control, because lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of sexually active young people don't use birth control. Hope she wasn't sexually assaulted, but in general, we don't have to talk about the how it happened, like those pieces around her pregnancy, but the other things for the 8-year-old. So anyway, so first things first, got to manage your own judgment, concern, fears in the conversation with the 8-year-old, because everybody needs to be engaging with, supporting, and still loving and being kind to the 17-year-old who has an enormous, complicated future ahead with a child at that age. All right, so here's what I would say. I would say, and again, other things. Does she know, the 8-year-old know how people can get pregnant? Does she know people have sex for pleasure? We don't know. So we'll just assume that maybe she does know how babies are made. And maybe they have to do a reverse order. Your sister's pregnant, and this is how that happened. So this is what I would basically say to the 8-year-old. I would say, hey, just needed to let you know we have some news in our family. Your sister is pregnant. She's going to have a baby. And that means you're going to be an auntie, assuming they're not going to put the baby up for adoption, because nobody does that. Anyway, you're going to become an auntie, which is really exciting. And then there may be questions. Well, how did she get pregnant? And you're going to need to be honest and say, you know, she had sex with somebody and they were using birth control, weren't using birth control, and she accidentally got pregnant. Now, again, does she know what birth control is? Does she know what sex for pleasure is? So I'm using a lot of words here, and so like trim it back, right? But the bottom line is they accidentally got pregnant. The next thing you're going to need to talk about is what's the involvement of the impregnator, and the kid's going to have questions where who's the daddy and what's going to happen? And the biggest piece of this sort of youthful pregnancy is, well, one of the biggest pieces is that those relationships don't often work out as romances, right? All we have to do is watch Teen Parent, what was that called? Teen Moms or whatever. So conversations about that. The most important thing, your message to the 8-year-old should be a couple of things. First of all, she didn't plan to become a parent, but you're going to support her through this as much as you can. And then the next piece is, in a non-judgy way, you need to start laying down the path that when she's ready to be sexual with someone, that it's really important to use birth control, have lots of conversations, be really ready for it. And so get that going. But the judgy piece, right? It is so hard. And then the parental judgment, right? I'm imagining that they feel terrible because they didn't support her, that they didn't know she was sexually active, that they didn't, whatever it is. And again, I just want to side note here that of course she could have been on some form of birth control. Birth control is not perfect. IUDs and implants are practically perfect. But there's a lot we don't know. Anyway, so all that judgment, the personal shame with the parents, and then that child is going to have a lot of things that are going to get in her way. And so again, just being careful about how you talk about what's happening with her. And then honestly, an 8-year-old witnessing their teenage sister having a child, that's probably a pretty good object lesson. And one other reason to be careful about how you talk about her in the pregnancy is that if that child, the 8-year-old, becomes pregnant before they, it's ideal, they're going to remember how their sister was treated. And so it's really important that you're careful and non-shaming. And even to the people around you, even with the sister's friends, you have to be really careful, because those girls may need a trustworthy adult in their life in some way, and you could be that person. But if you're all freaked out and loud and crazy about it, then you're not trustworthy, and it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help anyone. Final words of wisdom: please make sure that your kids know about sex for pleasure, that people mostly don't want to get knocked up when they have sex, know about birth control. Talk about that from an early age, and also say, we expect that when you become sexually active, if you're having P and V sex, that you'll use birth control. Your partner will use condoms. That's just the way we roll in our family. You won't be in trouble. Just let us know. All right. You're welcome. And, fingers crossed about everybody and unintended pregnancy. And yes, go birth control. Thank goodness we have that. Right? Right. That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's been calling in. The number's 206-926-1522, so please leave me a message if you have a question or a tale from the trenches. And thank you to Melanie Smith, my producer, and to Rolf, who wrote the Birds and Bees and Kids theme song.